Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Samosas and Chai, where we take an in depth look at the average life of an Indian immigrant. Today, our topic is my family's, specifically, their immigration struggles. I hope you guys learned something. I know I will. So, without further ado, as you can see, we have two open seats. So, I would like to introduce you to our special guests, my mother and my father.
Hi.
If
good
you guys
evening.
would like to introduce yourselves real quick.
Hi, my name is Swati and I'm Veer's mom.
Hi, I'm Chandan and I'm Avir's dad.
Awesome. So, if you guys are ready, I would like to start questioning you, start picking your brains about your knowledge. So, we'll start with the first question. What led you to come to the United States? Because it's typically seen as the land of opportunity. Was this part of your reasoning in coming here?
So my parents immigrated because my sister was pursuing higher education here. And again, considering this was, for a better life eventually, so I decided to move here as well. I was already enrolled in dental school there, so I decided to finish that and pursue further education here.
Awesome. And what were your resources in making the voyage to the United States?
I got a one-way ticket from my parents, a lot of blessings and good luck, but nothing much else. So I had to kind of make a life here on my own, which I'm proud of.
Yeah, that's very creditable. And just as a little quick background, they don't know you guys. So where did you guys come from in India?
I'm from a city known as Delhi, and I went to boarding school in Ajmer, Rajasthan, and then I further went to dental school in Pune, Maharashtra.
And you?
My dad was in the military, so we moved around quite a bit. And I am from a small place in a state of Punjab in India.
Awesome. So what was your life like in India regarding struggles? How were you guys living? Were you pretty well off, or were you on the other side of the spectrum? Were you pretty under?
I was
resourced?
I was a middle class. I was pretty, well off, like a higher middle class, so to say. I went to a pretty elite boarding school, got a very good education there, and went to a pretty nice university as well. So I think I was more fortunate.
How about you?
I think the average American can relate to my experience. I was born and brought up in your average middle class family. My parents were very loving and caring, but they were not very affluent.
Awesome. Back on the topic of your immigration to the United States, how was life in the early days in the United States?
In the early days, it was a struggle with everything. It was starting from the accent to the systems, like whether it be the road system, whether it be the school system, whether it be understanding anyone as to what they're trying to tell us. Even if we went to a restaurant to order something, we would have to really speak in a way where they would understand us, and that was, I thought, a major struggle. Even when I joined college here, it was the system was very different. We'd never done multiple choice questions. We always wrote long answers. So I think there was a lot of differences, and these are just a few of them.
So, from hearing what you've said, I can deduce that you were a student at the time of moving to the United States?
Yeah, and when I moved, I joined a dental school to pursue my higher education. So yeah, that was when I moved here. I joined a dental school.
And how was the admission process being an immigrant?
So I joined an advanced placement program, which was basically geared to foreign dentists. It was very, very competitive. So we had to give an exam to get into that program, and we had a lot of applicants from different parts of the world who would apply to this program. So it was very competitive, but I did pretty well on my exam. So I got into the program rather in the first try. So I was very proud of that.
And how would you say your experience was?
I am not as good of a student. So my experience was really different than your mom's, Avir. I had a gap year. I came here. I applied to school. Initially, I struggled with everything. Some things that your mom pointed out. Wasn't very good with multiple choice questions. Had a totally different way of education. I felt like the Indian education system's pretty comprehensive and robust, but it was more theoretical knowledge, not knowledge that can be applied very easily in a practical manner. So I had to take a gap year, and in that gap year, I worked in a clothing store 7 days a week. I had no time off, so I was preparing to take my tests again on the side, but also working hard so I can make a living, so I can sustain myself here. And I'm very proud that I was able to do that. And then the next year, I got admitted to one of the finest schools in the country and was ecstatic. I went to New York University and graduated from there in 2005.
Awesome. Just a general question, what do you feel your status in society was? Did you fit in right away, or did you feel like you were discriminated against?
I personally don't feel like I was discriminated against, but I thought that I was more comfortable with a group of Indian people. And fortunately, like I said, because I went to an advanced placement program, we had people from all over the world and a lot of Indians in our programs. So I did tend to gravitate a little bit more towards them. But then, as I started getting more used to the society here, I made some really good friends from all over the world and, from America. So I've definitely got so much more comfortable, but I thought initially I was gravitating more towards Indians, and that was my haven, my safety haven.
So these days in the news, we hear a lot about different things, like accounts of racial discrimination, whether it's against any ethnic or racial group. Do you guys personally have an experience that you can relate to with this? I'd let any of you take that if you have something.
Absolutely. I had one in my career, like early in my career. I remember, I just started practicing probably 2 years into my dental practice, and I had an American woman come in complaining of pain, and she wanted some pain medication, and I just knew that, she was possibly seeking drugs and she was a drug addict, so I refused to give her a script, and she got really violent and abusive, and she, started saying a lot of racial slurs, and, I should really go back to where I came from, and this is not my country, and we had to call the police on her. So that was just one example, and I'm sure there's some, down the road as well.
Wow. And do you have anything you can relate to?
Sure. I had one specific example where, I was talking to another fellow colleague, and, they made a comment that I thought was off color, and they proceeded to ask me how many cab rides does my father had to drive to put me through school, and I thought that was uncalled for and not necessary. But I feel like there's been little examples over the years where people have made you feel uncomfortable just because of the color of your skin.
So do you guys think that this happened more often, as you were saying, the little examples throughout your years, do you think this has happened more often in your early years as an immigrant, or do you still see this now?
I feel like it happened a lot more in the early years because we were trying to fit in, and like we had pointed out and said, our accent was different, we didn't understand the system, the language was a little bit different because we'd grown up in the British English system, which is slightly different than the American English system, and the pronunciation and the words and the nuances of the language. But then we have a great period in the middle. But I also feel like if you look at the political environment in the country and everything else that's been going on, I feel like things over the last few years have starting to deteriorate again a little bit.
Great.
That's right. Yeah.
You agree with this?
I agree with that, yeah. I feel the same. Like, I think it took us a little bit to get comfortable, and as we got more comfortable with the society, I feel like we were less discriminated against. But there are certain times where you do feel like people still discriminate, especially if you're a woman of color, You know, they ask you if you can really do the procedure, you know, can you really extract this tooth, or, you know, things like that.
So after listening to you, and you mentioned New York University, I can sort of infer that you settled somewhere around the New York area. Is this true?
This is true. We came to Long Island first. I settled there. Like I said before, I had a gap year, so lived and worked there, and then went to school in Manhattan. And once I graduated, was fortunate enough to move to Pennsylvania, and I've been here since 2006, and I've been extremely, extremely happy and feel blessed to be here.
And did you also settle in Long Island?
No, so I came to Boston, and I settled there for 2 years while I was getting my dental education, and then I moved back to Long Island with my husband, and to Pennsylvania, actually.
So what was your marital status at the time if you guys settled in different places?
We were married, obviously, and but we, you know, because of where we got into dental school, we had to go to dental school in different cities. So we had a long distance relationship, and we used to try to meet up every weekend. Either I used to take the bus down to New York because I didn't know how to drive. I just moved here. So it's something that I had to learn, and I did not have a car. So I, at that point, did not even have any experience with driving either. So I used to take the bus every weekend, or sometimes he used to drive down. So yeah, that's how we would meet up every weekend.
Awesome. How were you able to build your life in this country, and what problems did you face on the way, like generally?
So, like most immigrants, everybody has a similar story, no matter where they're coming from. Most immigrants come here with very little. We came here with very little, and we had to start at the very bottom. And then you have to scratch and claw your way up to the top. And that's why I feel like getting a great education is extremely important, because it gives you the opportunity to build a better life for your kids, and hopefully your future generations to come, as opposed to what you inherited. So Avir, I would like to ask you, how do you feel your life's been since you were born, or how do you remember your life here?
I feel that it's always been pretty comfortable. There's been some ups and downs definitely on the way, some different experiences. I'll just call into one specific example. We can spread more light on this later, but in second grade, my mother and my family moved to Philadelphia, but for work reasons, obviously, his job was still here, and my father had to stay here. And at the time, I didn't really understand much of why this was happening. But, so yeah, that's just a specific, but I feel that it's always been pretty comfortable. I've always been able to do mostly whatever I want, I'd say, but I have these opportunities to do, like, when I say I do whatever I want, I have these opportunities and these resources to do whatever I want, and I feel like that's because of how you guys have made yourselves. But I feel like why I'm doing this project, we were asked the question, as a blank, I have lived a life of blank. So I decided to choose, as in the first generation Indian American, I have lived a life of suppression regarding my family's struggles. So I feel like I have been missing how you guys initially built yourselves and how you struggled, because I feel like that's a topic that we don't really touch base on much. So that's why I wanted to do this interview, but pretty much comfortable, and that's why I wanted to explore a little more onto that.
Yeah, and I think this is an excellent choice of topic, Avir. I think it kind of familiarizes you with your past, as to where your parents came from or how their experiences were. I would, second everything that you said. I think since you and Anya were born, at least in the initial days, life wasn't that good. But after that, we've been quite fortunate as time has gone on, and me and your mother have embellished our education, especially your mom going back to specialty school. I think we've tried to set a good example for you and Anya to follow, and see, just what are the right things to do in life, what are the good things to do in life. Be good to people, do good, treat everybody with respect, work hard, and just lead a good
Yeah, I
life.
second that, absolutely.
Be a good human being.
Yeah. Do you think that you've had any incidences that you can remember where you've been discriminated, even though you're, second generation, but because of your color, you've been discriminated?
Yeah, I definitely feel that what I've experienced is less violent than what I hear you guys have experienced. Like, I've had no one come up to me and scream, like, slurs at me, but in joking matters, I feel like sometimes people sort of jokingly say stuff that is really just
Inappropriate.
inappropriate at the time, and they need to take some more thought into what they're actually saying. And sometimes it hurts, but I'm thankful to not experience something so as real as what you guys have experienced.
Yep, and we're thankful for that too.
Yeah. All right. I just want to ask, how does your life differ now from what it was back then? Like initially when you moved to the United States, and yeah.
I think there's a marked difference in our life at that time and right now. At that time, we really had nothing, and we were in debt. We had loans, and even though we had some family support, and that was a blessing, obviously. But we had to start from scratch. We have no close relatives around us, and we don't have a family system here as we would have had in India. And I think there's a marked difference, especially in how comfortable we've got in the society, our financial status, obviously. So I would say, yeah, there's a tremendous difference since when we moved.
Yeah, and I think there's three distinct phases in our lives after coming to America. The first was the pre-university, when you were doing everything you could to get into dental school, and you knew it was a competitive process. So that was the worst, I would say, from a struggle perspective in all respects, financially, socially, every way. Then when you got into school, there was this stress, like it is on you and other students, to do well, and perform well in school, graduate with good grades and do well academically. And then after that comes the phase of when you actually get out into the real world. You have to learn your job, you have to learn your skills, practice and get better. And I think slowly, as more time went by and you got more and more comfortable in your profession, you got more and more accomplished, we have seen the fruits of that labor come to fruition and have been doing quite well.
So as students, were you expected to provide for your family? Did you have any other members that were living with you?
We helped our family a lot. Our family helped us, and we helped them in return. So, we stayed home with parents to save on rent.
Right, yeah. You stayed with my parents, and I was living by myself, but I did get an apartment, and I was sharing with another Indian girl, and, so it was, obviously we don't have any kids then, so that was, I guess, a plus at that point. No extra.
Yeah, and most immigrant families, they learn how to do with less. They learn how to make it work. And it was no different for us.
Awesome. I think that is everything I wanted to ask of you guys. Thank you so much for joining me on this first episode of Samosas and Chai. If you guys would like to call in our next guests, I will be having my grandparents on, so if they would like to join, we will start that in a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Avir, for having us on this podcast. We really appreciated your in-depth and thought-provoking questions. It got us reflecting on the past, which me and your mom probably haven't dusted and looked at that phase of our life in many, many years. So this was a walk down memory lane for us, and we feel very fortunate and blessed to be your parents. And thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to interview you guys. You guys have been great, answered all of my questions thoroughly and with great poise. So thank you, and professionality. Thank you for
We
everything.
tried, thank you.
And we enjoyed ourselves.
Yeah.
We had a blast.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
So I hope you guys were able to learn something from the experiences my parents shared. Now I will call on my grandparents as mentioned, and we will ask them some similar questions, but also some specific questions to get how what their process was in coming from India to the United States. All right, they are just about to walk in right now, any second. So this is my grandfather.
Hello.
And this is my grandmother.
Hi,
If you guys would just like to introduce yourselves real quick, you can give your name.
so I'm Anita.
My name is Ramesh Malhotra. I'm an engineer. I'm 71 years old.
That's
And
about
I'm
it.
retired.
So-
I'm retired.
I'm Abir's grandmom. I'm retired.
Anything else you would like to add, or
I think that's fine.
are you guys ready to begin?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna start off with the same question I asked Mom and Dad. What led you guys to come to the United States?
I worked in Nigeria for a long 21 years, then came to India for a couple of years to take care of my parents and, for better the higher school education for my kids, for my daughters. And I could not find a very, stable job or business to do in Delhi, where I lived for 2 years. Then my kids were ready to go to college. We thought of, giving a better life and better education to them. And we then, in 2000, we migrated to US.
So basically, what I'm hearing is you came to the United States to give more opportunities to your children. Is this
Yeah,
correct?
sure.
Yep. All right. And what were your resources in coming to the United States? How much did you have?
Actually, we had some earnings from Nigeria and India so that we could start little business here. And that's what we did.
In amount, if
Yeah.
you want to know, it was
Amount wasn't that much,
$600,000
but
to
still,
$700,000, which was quite a lot for living standard in India and a developing country like Nigeria. But for US, we found it to be just adequate.
So do you guys think that even though you had such a sum of savings, it was just about adequate in the United States?
Yeah, just to for us to settle down, buy a small house, and start a business.
And why do you think this is?
Because things are little expensive. If you convert money from
Cost
there,
of living
yeah,
is-
living in India and here, it's definitely very expensive here.
Definitely. So just as a quick background, where did you guys come from in India? And
We come from Delhi, and there for a couple of years we lived there. We were staying with in our parents' house, and when we came there, we renovated the house, brought in all the household stuff from Nigeria. We came as a transfer of residence, so we could bring in everything, and we were leading a comfortable life.
so you would say that there weren't many struggles in India?
No, India, there were not many struggles because we had all the facilities we wanted to live.
So not too many
Yeah, not
struggles.
too many struggles. Like, I was not working, only my husband was working at times. So.
So when you came to the United States, did you find that there were a lot more struggles that popped up?
Yes, much more than what we expected to. And we came here first we started looking for a job. My experience working in Nigeria and India where there is hardly any automation or computerization that time. So here the things were absolutely different. And as far as my education was concerned, I applied for jobs in textile industry and in some insurance company and some other private companies, and they all said you are overqualified. And the type of jobs they were offering were much lower than what I would feel comfortable. So then we thought of starting up a business, small business. And we had some old friends from India. They were in sneakers and boots business. And
Oh,
we bought,
the sneaker business?
yes, sneakers business and clothing and accessories, and they had running business, so we bought one of their stores, paid a good amount of goodwill. They had Nike, Adidas, Reebok, Timberland, and all these accounts, so which were passed on to us, and some stock from the.
So you would say that your initial struggles in the United States were based off of the fact that it was tough to find a job because of your high level education. You were overly qualified for some of the positions that you applied for.
Yeah,
Or I was offered.
what he was offered. Yeah.
So you were saying that you
I never worked.
didn't work in India.
No.
When you came here, did that change or?
No, I had to help him in his business. So initially we started a business in 2001, and after 6 months we opened up another another setup in Jamaica. So I was taking care of one business, one store, and he was taking care of another store.
So eventually
And
you did have to
yeah,
work.
and we worked very, very hard that time.
So basically, you guys were saying that you immigrated in 2000 and you opened your business in 2001.
2001, yeah.
So in that year in the middle, what was happening there? Was that where you found the struggles of finding a job?
Yes. We lived for a while with our brother in Ohio, who was the doctor. Then we moved to New York, where we bought a business. And then we had 2 stores. Both of us were working, trying to make ends meet, take care of our kids. We have 2 daughters, and the elder daughter's fiance also came down here. And they all had to, their education was not recognized here, so they had to go for advanced education. And they were living with us, 2 daughters and the elder daughter's fiance. So Anita had to take care of, their food and cleaning.
All of
and
that
Yeah,
stuff,
every
that
day you
stuff,
have to get up
household
early in the
stuff.
morning, fix a breakfast, prepare lunch, then go to store. Our
Pack
store
their
used to open
lunch.
at 9, from 9 to 8 o'clock. We were in the store, come back home, fix the dinner, do the laundry, do the groceries, set up for the next day.
So how would you say your social life was in the United
There
States?
was no social life. We worked so hard. We didn't have any holiday. No, we were working on Christmas Day. We were working on New Year, all Saturdays, Sundays. No social life.
How long did this go on for that you had no
Yeah,
holidays?
Throughout the business, 8
Yeah,
years.
through
We
8
did
years.
not go even to India
Yeah,
once to meet our parents and family.
Wow. So no days off for 8 years straight?
Yeah.
Yes.
That just shows the work you guys had to put in.
So much
That's
effort,
crazy.
so
So-
much hard work.
You guys were saying you were providing for a family. How many people were you providing for?
As I said, 2 daughters and the elder daughter's fiance. Later, after 2 years, they got married there. And then they went to their dental school for advanced studies.
So about 5 people.
5 people.
Yeah. And did you guys, on any accounts, face any forms of racial discrimination? Like any specific stories that you guys have As we see a lot of stories on the news, do you guys have any stories that you have specifically?
No, we were too busy to
do
feel that or even know that.
Yeah,
So-
since you have your business, you don't have any time for all these things. You have to work hard, hard and hard. That's it. Work, work, work. That's it.
So you would just basically ignore these comments
Yeah.
because you would just not let them scratch you. You were so focused on what
Yeah.
you had to do.
Yeah, because when you are in the store, all type of customers come. They say so many things. You have to ignore. You can't fight with everybody, right? So you have to ignore and do your work so that you please all the customers. They go happy.
So you would say that you don't specifically remember any of these instances because you choose
To
not-
avoid it.
Yeah, you choose to avoid it.
We choose to avoid it.
All right, and you guys were mentioning some areas. Where did you guys first settle in the United States?
We came and lived with our brother for a while,
Okay.
and then we came to
Long Island.
Long Island, New York, and we rented a house for a year. Then we bought a small house in Hicksville, and to supplement our income from the business, we rented the first floor of the house.
So as an extra source
Extra.
of income, you guys rented the first floor
First
of your
floor, yeah,
house.
to make our ends meet.
So how was that like? Were there other people living in your house?
Yeah, they had a separate entrance, separate living, and they had nothing to. They were not interfering with our life. And
So you just used it as an extra way to get some money. In.
some extra income.
So that we can pay our bills and our mortgage.
Yeah. Wow. So how is this different or similar in any way to the life you faced in Nigeria or India?
See, in Nigeria and India, we had lot of help, like all the housework is done by the helpers,
Nigeria,
yeah.
we had a very luxurious life.
Same is in
We
India,
were-
like you can afford everything, like
So
you
No.
can get all the help you want. You can keep a driver, you can keep a maid, you can keep a full-time maid.
We had two company
Yeah.
drivers, two company cars, and
So it was-
we are living as an expatriates and being in a senior position. I was a chief technical executive there of a big textile group. So we had all the security and drivers and household helps. They were provided as perks.
So it was definitely a drastic difference when you guys came here.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Here you have to do everything on your own, like every single thing. You
Yeah,
don't have any
expensive.
help. You can't afford, it's too
Yeah,
expensive.
yeah.
That's sort of.
I believe you guys already mentioned this, but what processes did you guys go through to get a job? Were there any specific processes that you had
We
to
did
go
not
through?
work. We did not take any job here. We started
So you just
in business.
You
Yeah.
just you just
Got a business,
bought a
and
business.
we were working for us.
So did you use your savings to buy the business,
Yes.
and
Absolutely.
that was what you were
Hmm.
basically banking on?
Yeah, quite a substantial part of our savings we had to pay as a goodwill to buy the accounts for good brands like Nike, Adidas, Timberland.
So was this business sufficient to support your family of five?
It wasn't. That's why we rented the house.
So
We-
you
part
would
of
say
the house
that
to-
even though you guys were working so hard with no holidays, it still wasn't even.
Yeah, sometimes ups and downs come. Sometimes the business was running good. Sometimes it's not running good. Sometimes you think, okay, let's close this business, finish it off, sell it off, and do something else. But it's very hard to switch all these things. You have invested so much money
We
in
were
that.
not used to, the business
This
climate
American
in
system
US.
also, we are not used to that system also.
And so there was a
Yeah.
time when we thought of, selling the business off and getting back to India.
But it's not that easy.
The things were getting so hard at times.
Yeah.
But by
But
God's grace,
slowly,
gradually,
yeah.
the things turned out to be okay.
So what would you say your relative quality of life was like? Were you?
Initially, it was very tough. Later, when we got used to this place, so it becoming more easier. You can like everything, like initially it was a language problem. We couldn't understand what other people are saying. Slowly we got hang of it, and then you start getting used to that adaptation. You adapt that place and you start living to your best. You know what you can do.
And then in 2008,
Yeah.
our daughter Swati had a child, 2 children, and she needed some help, so we decided
To settle
business
down.
also wasn't doing so good. So we decided to move with them.
So eventually, after 8 years,
8 years we
and then-
moved with our daughter
We
in
then,
Pennsylvania.
from the we sold our business, the house in Long Island. From that, we bought a rental property in Addison. So
Okay.
we were getting
Some
some rent
income,
out of
yeah.
there. And then from the remaining, the savings from Nigeria and the whatever, sale proceeds from the business.
Awesome. So you guys moved to Easton, Pennsylvania after you guys left Long
Yes.
Island?
Yeah.
Got it.
And then we, for 2 years, we went to Philadelphia also with our daughter because she was going to do endodontics there.
Yeah, she was
Yeah,
doing
so
specialization.
specialization. So we
Um,
stayed there for 2 years, and then we moved back to
Easton again.
Easton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what were the common financial issues you guys faced, like on a day-to-day basis? Meaning, like, could you afford a car? Could you, like, how?
Yeah, from the savings, as immediately we came to US, we did not know much about the cars and all. In Nigeria, India, we were provided cars from the company. So here we landed up buying a SUV, Isuzu SUV, which didn't turn out to be a good buy. We were not
Not very happy with that.
and we were not aware of lots of things what were which prevailed here.
Awesome.
The
So
cost of learning.
just to finish off, thank you for everything, but we'll go off with one last question. Overall, what would you say the most detrimental struggle that you faced was as a total, like in total?
For 8 years, we did not take a single holiday and did not have chance to go to visit our family and
We didn't have a
totally social,
time
no
for
social
ourselves,
life.
So, yeah, that must
So
be
busy, so
yeah.
busy with the.
You just had to work straight for 8 years.
For 8 years straight. No holidays, nothing for ourselves. We didn't think of ourselves anything.
We could not even afford to fall sick.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
That's-
crazy. Thank you guys so much for sharing everything that you did. It's been a pleasure having you guys on Samosas and Chai.
Thank you.
Thank you for
very
having
much
us. It's a
for having
pleasure.
me. Thank you for having us. I hope we could answer your questions to
Very
your
well. Thank you.
satisfaction.
Thank you so
And
much.
it will be useful to some of your
So you are most welcome.
colleagues or
Yes, so as you guys can see, we just conducted the interview. I hope you guys have learned as much as I have from listening to my grandparents. Thank you so much for tuning in to the first episode of Samosas and Chai. It's been your host, Chadha, signing off. Thank you very much.